Hey everybody, welcome to Volleyball Sports. I'm here with my good friends Alex Birch and Tracy Rankin, and we are so excited to be here. This is our inaugural podcast, and we are dedicating this time to the WNBA. Tip-off is tomorrow, the 14th, and we have just been getting hit with headline after headline of things that are coming down the pipe for the WNBA before tip-off tomorrow. Alex and Tracy, I have been sending you guys links all day. Between, the Dick's Sporting Goods clothing collection, Toronto expansion teams, Las Vegas Aces, and as a partnership with a woman-owned and family-operated tequila brand, Dos Taurasi.
I'm getting Dos Taurasi immediately.
1,000%. 1,000%.
Yeah.
I'm a part-time Vegas resident, so I gotta support.
Yeah. Oh, that's right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Callie Lawson Freeman on Twitter.
I don't know if I'm going to get Skims, but,
Yeah.
You should get Skims. We should all get Skims.
Yes. Dick's Sporting Goods, done. Skims,
we are
done.
who they are marketing to. Callie Lawson Freeman on Twitter
Delta
wrote
Airlines,
that
done.
he said that this tequila partnership was very on brand, that while the WNBA's partnerships with Skims and Dick's Sporting Goods are being highlighted, that the Aces had announced this partnership, and they say that Asia Wilson mandated an 8-shot minimum for attendees of last year's championship parade. So I do recall a fantastic story.
I would not have survived. I would have pulled a Beth Porter and been like, boop.
Oh, Beth Porter.
over the
heart.
I know, over the shoulder.
I gotta throw in some L-word references in there somewhere.
Yeah. Of course you do.
Mm-hmm.
And Asia's got a shoe deal. That was announced yesterday.
I love that shirt. Of course, I have a shoedeal.com. That was fantastic.
Of course, I have a shoedeal.
That was fun.
Yeah. I want some A1s. That's an awesome brand name from a branding perspective.
Yeah.
That's I agree. The best since Air Jordans. I feel like the A1 is going to do really well.
It's pretty awesome. There's just so much to be excited about. And we were all talking before we started recording, and I basically had to tell us all as a collective that we need to start recording because we're already talking about so many great things. And one of the things we were discussing is that I am a bandwagon newbie WNBA fan. I
love that one.
Have known about it, and I have gone to a game or two with Alex. I think Tracy and I might have gone to a game as well. We did for the Mystics when they were in the playoffs, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But I have definitely been on the periphery, and listening to the two of you just get so excited about how fast these changes are happening and how long we've been waiting for them to come over the last 27, 28 years. And you two were talking about that, and I was loving it because I think you were feeling what a lot of other people are feeling.
Well, yeah. I mean, I remember when I was playing college basketball, I'm going to age myself really bad here. I graduated in 97, and that's when the league started. So it's kind of like this baby that has grown in the last several years. And I would say just in the last couple years, we're starting to actually see personalities in the WNBA. Like, we didn't see that. And that's the difference between the W and the NBA. Is the NBA, you have all these crazy personalities, and you didn't really have that in the WNBA. But now we've got like Caitlin Clark, we've got Angel Reese, we've got Camila Cardoso, we've got shoving matches in games, talking trash. Like, this is the stuff we've wanted to see for years. Like, this is the drama we need.
Why do you think
they weren't allowed to? They weren't allowed to have the personalities. If you think back to the movie like A League of Their Own, where they're like, hey, here's this etiquette class that you have to do to show that you're still a lady sliding into second base. The W was very much the same when it first started. It was very much like, hey, women are predominantly known for being more masculine in this sport, or hey, they might be gay and we can't really, this is the late 90s. It's not like, Don't Ask, Don't Tell still existed. And so it was very much like, how do we fem up the league? How do we fem up these players? Be like an athlete, but also be delicate and approachable. And, you had, when the league started, a lot of that momentum was off the 96 Olympics with the dream team. And so you had the dream team of the women and you had the dream team of the men. And it was like, that's a like visceral memory for me as a basketball player growing up. It's like, I remember being at camps. I was in high school at the time and watching these women play, and then to the league to kick off. And I think those for Trace, like, I feel like those first few years, like, there was a lot of momentum. between like the Cheryl Simpson, Rebecca Lobo, and the
the Houston Comets were like getting like 15,000 a game.
Yeah.
The attendance, if you look at the early W, like the attendance numbers were pretty high. I mean, the Mystics were leading. They were winning attendance records. It was like 10,000 a game at the Verizon Center or whatever MCI. I don't even know what it was at the time. But
MCI. It's probably MCI.
I mean, that's really dating me. Oh my God.
That's way back. Yes. It might have been MCI actually in the 90s. I think.
It was MCI. It was still MCI. But it did. Yeah. It's like you had like all this momentum in the late 90s, early 2000s. You had huge attendance records, and you had these big brand player names. You had the Cheryl Soups, you had the Shamika Holtzclaws, you had the Rebecca Lobos, you had the Lisa Leslies. You had these names that had these brands and these, these personalities within the league.
Even Cheryl Soups had a shoe.
Yeah, then it like for some reason it lost that momentum, and in the 2002 to 2010, it's like the league kept going and churning, but you didn't really have a lot of. You had these great athletes in the league, and these are always been phenomenal female athletes, and these women play year round. And I know early days, Trace, like for me, when the season would start in May, I'd get a little frustrated. As forward players, like, oh man, can't you get the fundamentals right in like the first few matches? And it would be frustrating because I get it. These players are not playing together. They're playing in Russia. They're playing in Italy. They're playing in Turkey. And then they have 2-week training camp, and then the season starts, and then go. And then, hey, you're going to get on a commercial flight, and you're going to sit in the last row, and you're 6'5". But hey, can
with
you
a screaming baby behind you?
With a screaming baby behind you, and then you're going to go play the Seattle Storm, and then you're going to go play, the Houston Comets, and then that's what these women have been doing for 27 years. And you're just, you're walking through the airport, and you're like, hey, Is that Sue Bird? Is that Diana Taurasi? Is that Lisa Leslie? And you're like, yeah, they're like, hey, we have a layover in Houston, not even direct.
Yeah.
You get the layovers. It was basically, Oh, yeah. Go ahead, Trace.
No, I think the athleticism has gone through the roof. 100%. It's a night and day difference. Mm-hmm. God bless Title IX. I mean, we would not be here if we did not have Title IX. I mean, the people like the Billie Jean Kings of the world are just loving all of this. It's the fruits of their labor. But I mean, just being able to have these women that are just phenomenal athletes that you can watch, it's more exciting. Like the fundamentals are better. The basketball IQ is higher because these women have had so many opportunities when they were growing up to play, and to play against boys, play in all kinds of leagues, play, all through the ranks. And it's finally showing. And then I'd be remiss to not say the NIL, the name, image, likeness, has just shot everything through the roof. And now we're actually seeing the social media aspect. We're seeing way more of these players, people see, Caitlin Clark on State Farm commercials, and they're like, oh, I want to see her play, just randoms. I was reading that somewhere. So anyway, we could go on and on about this because I just feel like there's just so much talent. There's so much drama right now with the league because now you have all these characters that you know about. And I've always said, women always used to watch. For women, it was soap operas. Okay, Days of Our Lives, All My Children. Yes. For men, it was sports.
Wrestling
was their soap opera. You know, because they have all these.
I
mean, you have all these characters, these villains, these heroes. And so now you're seeing that, like a Caitlin Clark, people hate her or they love her. Angel Reese, you hate her or you love her. It's fantastic.
Well, that's where we can pivot into like the Diana Taurasi, where
please pivot.
Yeah, and so it's like you talk about like what are the rivalries and like who are the players. And listen, Diana's came into the league in 2004, I think. No, 2000.
I think so.
Because Sue came in 2000, because I think she graduated the same year I did. So 2004. And so. But Diana's always been like that like you classify as like the baddie, like the one who's going to talk trash on the court, who's going to
the villain, you
know, they could shoot from half court and like make buckets for days. But Diana's always been like, I would say like the lovable asshole. because you're just like,
she's
love or hate
brash.
her. You're just
she's
like,
brash.
you know, you're like, oh my God. Like, especially like for me, like, it's like, if you, from a college perspective, like all we had, like you had the W, but you were really like the college loyalists. It's like, who were you? Were you a UConn fan? Were you a USC fan? Were you a Tennessee fan? Like Tracy, when you and I were growing up, it was like, you were UConn, you were Tennessee, or Stanford.
Right.
And there weren't many teams to really like, because the talent, the schools weren't investing in it. The talent didn't have the opportunity to really develop to where it is today, where it's like people like, for us, it's like people get frustrated, like, why isn't Tennessee winning? Or what's happened to UConn? Like, they have 11 championships, give them a break. But there's more diversity and there's more opportunity for other schools to excel and for these athletes to have the funding,
exposure, and everything.
And then to your point, like the NILs, for them to actually get money, because social media exists, because they can be like, hey, I have 1 million followers on TikTok. I'm going to make my revenue while I'm also playing this sport, and I'm also going to get this deal because, hey, you can't use my name and my likeness to sell out arenas.
Right. Oh my God. Can you imagine if Caitlin Clark didn't have an NIL and she was doing sold out arenas on the road and in Iowa? Like, unbelievable. So unfair.
And so when you look at this Diana versus Caitlin and what's happening here,
love it.
My perspective is like, she knows exactly what she's doing. This is
she's majoring in marketing. She majors in marketing.
The same way that Kim Mulkey knows exactly what she's doing.
Yes.
Kim Mulkey knows exactly what she's doing. Like, love her or hate her, you're going to love her or hate her. But she knows, like, I'm wearing these flashy outfits because you're going to talk about me and you're going to talk about the school.
Oh, yeah.
Or I'm going to be myself. Yeah.
As much as I don't care for her, like, she is amazing for the game.
And she knows exactly what to do. You know, she knows how to, like, it's Kim Mulkey night at LSU. And it's the same thing where Diana Ross has only been in Phoenix. She's never left. And I think that's another thing, that you have this free agency. And with these female athletes, like when you think about free agency, and like I go back to the NFL days where I'd be like, this is my team and I'm going to have this one player and I'm going to follow him forever. Or even like with the Chicago, like growing up with the Bulls or the Pacers or the Knicks, like you knew your best players were going to stay there for a long time, predominantly.
Yeah.
And the W is kind of like that. And women's college basketball is like that. So you can like grow to love these athletes over a 4-year period with women's athletics, whereas men's athletics, college men's basketball, you're like, maybe they'll be there a year, maybe they won't, or they're going to, now there's the transfer portal, which also
do you think that that's actually still happening with the women? I've seen a lot of transfers after this year. Do you think that's
so? I think the marquee players stay. So that's the other thing. It's like you have your marquee players. So for instance, Phoenix is Taurasi and Brittany Griner. They're never going to leave. But you also had Sue Bird out in Seattle, and she had opportunities, but that was her choice. But then you had Stewie, who's in Seattle, and she made the choice to leave. She was a marquee player, but you know, her wife and her wife's family is over in Europe. So like logistically, it made more sense for her to be on the East Coast. If that wasn't the case, maybe she would have stayed in Seattle her whole career.
Well, and I think some of these teams like Seattle, like when Sue retired, I think Rihanna saw the writing on the wall, like, okay, I want to get with a team that to be a championship contender, because Seattle was going to have to rebuild a little bit. And now we're starting to see a little bit of this movement towards like the super team type deal. You know, but, you know, talking and pivoting again, pivot's like our theme here.
Pivot away. That's what you do in basketball. Pivot.
Jump stop, pivot. Just thinking of like the super. Well, I need a sip of my rosé with that.
Yeah, I know. I know. I'll take a sip of my Pinot while you.
Just thinking of the super teams too. Like you look at like a Las Vegas versus a New York, and you look at kind of the culture that Las Vegas has versus New York. And New York has a bunch of great players. Don't get me wrong, but last year I always felt like they were so disjointed. And that's why I'm interested to see how they are this year, because Las Vegas just seems like a family. Like Becky Hammon has them clicking.
I love me some Becky Hammon.
She's on today, and I think that's not the first and not the last time that she will be dancing on Instagram.
Yeah,
she did that when she was at the San Antonio Stars and she was a player. There's a whole video of her like doing like the MC Hammer, like can't touch this dance, and so. Becky's always been
a good dancer, by the way.
She's always been an underdog. Her story in and of itself is crazy. And so she's an underdog mentality for sure. And that's how she's going to coach. And that's how she drives players. And so I think Becky's one of those coaches that's like ride or die, the same way that I think the South Carolina players are for
Don Staley.
Don Staley.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's not that there aren't amazing coaches out there. It's just coaching styles. And Sandy's an amazing coach for New York, like when she was a Phoenix and now she's at New York. And I think, you know, I'm curious to see how Teaspoon does in Chicago from a coaching perspective. You know, and when I was looking at the teams and trying to figure out, like, there's all this talent, and you look at the draft class, and you look at Chicago, and you look at, you know, where people ranked. Like Phoenix was ranked in the bottom last year. Brittany's injured, I think, so that's unfortunate. But it's going to be a tough season. I still, to the super teams, I still think it's going to be Vegas. I think New York, to your point, if they can get some consistency there, where they play 4 quarters every night that they're playing. And then I am curious to see the output of this year now that majority of the games will be chartered. And they're not waiting on, like, hey, can they rest? Can they, like, the players talk about that a lot.
That's
it's like
that's a game changer.
I mean, the elevation, like, the league was already elevated. These athletes are amazing, and how they play is like next level to what it was 10, 15 years ago. And so the fact that they could actually get full rest and, you know, have time to, like, come in and not be like, okay, so we only got 3 hours of sleep and we missed our flight and we missed the layover.
Yeah, we slept at the airport. Like,
we slept at the airport in the chairs, and, you know, like, and you're just like, oh, but you're a professional athlete and you make $100,000. Like the salary cap is still an issue. Like, there's no joke. There's no, you know, that I'm stoked that we're expanding the league. It's about time. I understand why we haven't been able to from a funding.
By the way, there was news on that today. Did you see that? I think I sent it to you guys.
I know that Toronto got announced.
Yeah, we know about Toronto.
I know that the Bay Area, right?
The Bay Area has one.
Toronto, and then
and they're saying
what's 15 and 16?
Yeah, they're saying 16 teams by 2028. The league is expecting to make announcements on teams 14 and 15 this year. And the question of where will the 16th team play? And Edinburgh said there are up to 10 cities fighting for that last spot. Do we know who those cities are? I haven't seen anything about that yet.
No, but they really need to put one in Portland, because the sports bra over at Portland would be off the hook.
What's his name? Serena Williams' husband. Is franchise basically. Serena Williams. He's a massive
hockey player husband, right?
No. He's former president of Reddit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't. I so apologize that I cannot remember your name, because I know how big of an advocate of women's sports that he is.
Ohani or something.
Yeah, that sounds about right. But no, he's, like, investing in it, and they want to franchise it in some way or open it in other cities, which is awesome.
DC, shout out.
I know, right?
Yeah,
for sure. But I am, the fact that there are 10 cities battling for it. I think also Kansas City might be an interesting city with the way the NWSL and the Mahomes investment there. I think.
Oh yes.
You know, I think that. You know, I know Denver was on the list. Obviously, Nashville's always on the list with Tennessee there. I think
Boston maybe.
Boston maybe. I don't know about other Texas locations. I know Dallas just sold out, and it's great to see, like, these
Houston was trying to get back in.
Yes.
The owner of the Rockets is trying to get back in.
I saw that this week.
No,
which would be great.
Everyone's jumping on the bandwagon.
Yeah. And it's
now
great. I hope,
Alex, you were saying earlier that, you know, things had ramped up and then things kind of slowed down. Things are ramping up again, but I can't imagine it's going to slow down again. This train is not going to be stopped.
We're not. This isn't like a 2005, 2015 scenario, because just between technology advancement and how you can watch a sport and how sports are watched these days on phones and anywhere in the world. I think, I was listening to my friend's podcast, and she was talking about how the Minnesota game, there was the preseason game and they didn't have it televised. So somebody was streaming it on their phone, and it got over 1 million hits.
Views.
And then it got, I think at peak, like 400,000 people just watching on this woman's phone. And the head coach of Minnesota was like, "Can you pay that woman $20? Like, I don't know who she is, but give her $3 a hit or something, because, you know, she did it for free." But again, I think that's your point. Like Kathy, the commissioner, she's like, "We're just trying to catch up. Like, they're not set up for production and running these games for every single match. We don't have a lot of teams. There are only 12, but the fact that not every opening night game is televised, or like the first, you know, so how they're catching up to that is it on WNBA.com? Is it on Twitter? Is it on, how do you stream this? And because people want to watch whatever the story
Disney is the Disney Channel running
Disney,
tomorrow's
Disney Plus. Yeah.
Disney Plus? Is that the FIBA game? And
I think so.
Yeah, and we can pivot off of that as well, because I'm looking at these games tomorrow. The games tomorrow night, we've got lots of pivoting. We've got the Liberty at the Mystics. That's on 7:00 ESPN3 in the League Pass. Now the Indiana Fever at Connecticut Sun, that's 7:30 ESPN2, ESPN Plus, and now Disney Plus. Correct?
Yeah.
And then we've got the Phoenix Mercury at the Las Vegas Aces. That's at 10 p.m., but that's another one that's on ESPN2 and ESPN Plus. And then the other night game is the Lynx at the Storm at 10 p.m., ESPN3 and the League Pass. So, 3 out of those 4 games are on the ESPN networks, not including ESPN Plus. And then also Disney. And I'm still just so amazed by
ESPN,
all of it.
They negotiated rights with ESPN, if I'm not mistaken, for this year. But, these games coming up, there's so many storylines. New York at Washington, a little bit of a yawn, because unfortunately my Mystics.
I know.
My Mystics are just.
What do we got left?
I don't know what we're gonna do.
They're my OG team. They're my OG team. Yeah. They're my OG team. And that's going back to like marquee players. I remember when Deladon got picked and went to Chicago for her first 3 years, and we had like the shit season before that. I was like, we're gonna get number 1, and then we got number 3 in the draft pick. And listen, I think we got Natasha. I think we got Natasha Cloud on that draft, and she was amazing for the Mystics. I'm sad she went to Phoenix, but
she was a character. She was a character, Like, here's the
really
thing,
big in the community, and I think that. But yeah, DC is just like I'm happy Dolson's back, and that's great. But we lost Emma Museman.
Yeah.
We got another Belgium, player, which is hopefully she's great, but I have no idea. Like who our people are.
You're preaching to the choir, because it's one of those things where the WNBA is, bottom line, it's a business, and not only do you have to have a good team, you've got to have a team with characters. Like you got to have a team that people want to see, and they put butts in the seats. And Natasha Cloud, I wasn't a huge fan of her, but I tell you what, she played with passion, and she got people in the stand fired up. Elena Deladon, same thing. People want to come out and see her.
Yeah.
And, it's kind of like Ariel Atkins, love her. She's a great player, Olympian, can shoot the 3, but man, it just makes me want to fall asleep in my seat. It's just not exciting.
You need those people that you want to. And the thing about the DC market, every market's a little bit different. When you think about DC, used to play at Verizon Center, now Capital One Arena, whatever the heck it's called there. Then got the Ted Leonsis and Monument Sports. I think that they're great. It's 5,000, seat arena in what is it, Southeast DC? Beautiful facility.
Congress Heights, to be specific.
Beautiful facility. Yeah. However, asterisks, 5,000 seats, and the Audi field. That just goes to. I'm hoping it improves. And
I was just going to mention,
I think. Listen, they're going to Capital One Arena for the Indiana game. So whenever they play Indiana, because Caitlin Clark's coming, they're going to go there because people want to see Caitlin Clark.
No, and they're probably going to move it. They're probably going to move it to Capital One when Chicago comes with Angel Reese, because as much as Caitlin Clark has a following, Angel Reese has a huge following, and she's from here. Yeah. So that game is going to be huge, and it's one of those things where for the Mystics, I don't know. I feel like Mike Tebow, Eric Tebow, I don't know. Part of me is like, can we get some fresh blood into there?
Reset.
Yeah.
So, I feel like we're
you feel me, Donnie. You feel me.
I do feel you. I feel you.
I feel like we're where the Sparks were the last 5 seasons. Where the Sparks were, where you're just like, but they at least had NECA. Like they had NECA.
Yeah.
But now, and they had Candace for a while. But you have Kurt there now, who's their head coach, and he's gonna get right ship. But the Mystics, New York's gonna win that.
Crush them.
I don't think
Crushville.
Yeah.
The line is
when I look at the talent, I still think I don't know. The W doesn't have a lot of blowout games. It's rare for a team to come in and blow somebody out by like 20, 30, 40 points.
Yeah, true.
Most of these games are pretty much within winnable margins. Early games of the seasons are
to you.
It's usually like 10 to 15 points.
No, I'm just because I'm looking at the lines. Looking at the lines. The Mystics are underdogs, right? Liberty is favored by 12.5 points as of today. The Fever are underdogs. The Sun are favored by 5.5. That's the closest game tomorrow night.
Yeah,
is the Fever
because you have Alyssa Thomas. Alyssa Thomas is a beast. She is a beast.
Thank you, Alex.
I mean, she like defensively. If you thought Nika Mule was hard on you again with UConn, like, girl, you like.
Oh man,
God bless Caitlin. I think she's gonna be Caitlin and do amazing things, but Alyssa Thomas is gonna be all over her, base guarding her the whole game. Like it's gonna be a fun match.
That game has so many storylines because, you've got Alyssa Thomas, DeWanna of Honor with Connecticut, and they are just, and it's going to be sold out. First time
and they're getting
Connecticut
married.
Sold out.
They're like a couple. It's like, just like so sweet and adorable.
I mean,
it's
insane. It's
get
insane.
it, wifey. Get it.
Yeah.
You get that girl.
You've got the head coach,
I love
Stephanie White of Connecticut, who used to be with the Fever. So she's going to want to kick their ass. Because Stephanie White basically got fired.
She's from Indiana.
She's from Purdue. She played at Purdue. So there's that Indiana game not only has Caitlin Clark, but it just has all these other things too. Again, where it's just like this drama where people, Stephanie White is like, can't wait for this game, because like it's going to be, everyone's going to be watching this game because whether or not you love or hate Caitlin Clark, you want to see how she does. Because this is where the real deal hits the floor, like this is a preseason. Like you gotta and you could see even the preseason games, like these teams are double teaming Caitlin at Elko Screws. Like they are going after her, and she's gonna struggle a little bit for sure.
They don't want to be the team that Caitlin Clark runs all over in the WNBA.
Right.
They don't want.
No, I mean.
Even though she's the catalyst for charter flights and all these record ratings, it's like one of these things where okay, do you really want to like shoot the messenger here? Like she has totally elevated this league,
but she's gonna elevate. She's gonna elevate herself, and she's gonna elevate the other teammates around her. I think I'm excited to see how her and Aaliyah Boston do from a high-low passing game, and I think. Again, she's going to create opportunities for other teammates, and if her teammates can rise to the occasion,
if you're going to double team her,
they're going to have to.
There's going to be other people open.
They're going to have to pull away from her at some point, and I think every team's going to go into their match against Indiana. And they were in like second to last place last year. Like I don't know, were they? I don't know where the standings were last year, which is terrible. I don't know.
Indiana was at least second or third to last.
They didn't make the top 8 because the playoffs are only. And again, that's so sad because there's 12 teams, so 4 teams are like you're done. Like you don't get
that. That is crazy. I mean, it really is. It's nuts. So the other two games are the Mercury at the Aces. That is the Aces favored by 13.5.
Aces.
We'll just
it's just. Listen, again, I like with Phoenix, you have Natasha Cloud now, you have Taurasi there. Unfortunately, Grinder's hurt. You have...
what is her injury?
It was her ankle or her foot. I don't know. She went down in preseason, the preseason game, and it's a recurring injury, I think, for her. But Vegas is just... Man, they're on all cylinders right now, and I love Deja Fair and Kate Martin. Like that's a feel good story for me, and like they're both. I don't necessarily know they're going to get a lot of minutes.
For those of us who might not know why that's a feel good story, can you tell us a little bit about why?
Sure. Well, Deja Fair is awesome from Syracuse. I think she was the second highest scorer back behind Caitlin Clark, so she's a phenomenal athlete. And Kate Martin is like basketball IQ of Becky Hammond. So I think that's one of the things that I think one of the reasons why Becky wanted to bring her on. But Kate Martin went to the WNBA draft, not expecting to get drafted, like hoping something would happen, but she was there to support Caitlin. So the big story was like, hey, she was out in the bleachers. She was out in the bleachers, just like, hey, yay, my teammate with their other teammates. And then she got called up. And she made it through training camp and she made it through preseason. And so she's got a spot right now, which is great.
Yeah.
And so that's huge, like that feels
awesome.
good. And then for me, you have Kittle from Virginia Tech, who's recovering from an injury. post player.
Liz Kitley.
Liz Kitley. Yeah, Kitley. Mm-hmm. And so a girl from Virginia, myself, and, you know, my former college coach went to Tech and now he's at Kentucky. I was happy to see like that Georgia Amor, Liz Kitley, that senior class, you know, do what they did last season. Unfortunately, injuries prevented them from going farther in the tournament this year. But the fact that Becky took her under, is like, we're going to bring you under contract. You rehab here. We think that you're going to do great things. That just speaks to, again,
Becky.
I love Becky so much.
And do you think that Becky would stick with the WNBA? You think she would ever leave to go to the NBA? You think she'll stay?
Yeah. Well, I mean, what's the point? Especially now that the W has totally elevated.
Like, right? Like, everyone always asks that question, but do we need to be asking that now?
Well, right? I don't think so.
I mean, is it a break for her to go to NBA? I don't think so.
No, listen, unless Vegas, and listen, I think the only reason that would get brought up is if Vegas brings in an NBA team, and Mark is the owner of that NBA team. He owns the Aces, he owns the Raiders, and then the Vegas is an expansion city. I haven't heard any
rumblings about that, but I would not be surprised.
It's gonna happen.
Yeah, you're right.
Well,
Vegas has become a sports town, so, and they always make money because everyone's a fan of something when they come to Vegas, and so they're gonna watch.
I just feel like she has had such an amazing experience with coaching this Aces team that she can see herself now building kind of a legacy with Las Vegas. And it makes zero sense to go to the NBA. And on that point, going over to Phoenix, who hired, I believe, a male coach with zero women's basketball experience coaching. Zero. So that's another storyline that I'm going to be following this year, is how he is going to gel with these women athletes when you've basically never coached women before.
Yeah.
And
not even on the assistant level, and not even in like the background.
Level, zero level.
No. Yeah. Whereas Becky is like, she's a pro, she's an athlete, but she coached under Pop for an NBA, and then she coached in the summer league, and then, you know, so, you know, it's just one of those. Yeah.
Well, because you've got this aging veteran with Taurasi who has a lot of opinions, and honestly, like, I'm kind of over her.
Did she announce this for last season? Did she announce yet? Has she announced that she's retired?
She wants to keep playing until she falls down. Like, she's going to play in the Olympics.
I think she's going to get through the Olympics and then announce.
I hope so, because honestly, like, she complains too much. Like, she's a good villain. She's a great villain.
Do you think she likes playing that role?
I think 1,000%. But also, there's also minutes that are limited for these these more veteran, players that are in the league. When I think about, Sue and Diana, I think are outliers, but I think they were showing like you could be in this league for 20 years if you wanted to. And I think there's the potential that happening more athletes being able to do that, because if they can get paid a better salary than what they make, because we're getting more sponsorships, we're making more money in the league. The rookie salary will go from $70,000 a year to maybe $250,000 a year, so they don't have to play overseas. Overseas money is still gonna pull a good chunk of these athletes, because again, we're never gonna have enough spots, even if we go to 16 teams. That's and
that's gonna take time.
That's only 48 new players. And you still have all this talent that's going to go to these other markets. They're not going to go to Russia anymore, but they're still probably going to go to China. They're still probably going to go to Turkey. And those folks, when you go overseas for those contracts, all your housing's taken care of, and your salary's at a minimum $500,000 up to $2 million, depending on.
It's like a rock star situation.
That's life-changing money for people. Like when you're 21, 22, 23.
Diana Taurasi and Sue Bird, like multimillionaires, just playing over in Russia for like 3 years. And, that's a whole other story.
10 years.
Well, yeah. I know. I listened to that podcast.
Becky played for that team. Candace Parker played for that team. Brittany Griner played there. I mean, she got stuck in that's like not even going into like how she was arrested in Russia. And the fact that she's back is a miracle. And but it's these, I think I'm hoping that this momentum, I'm hoping with all these contracts, and again, it's kind of like the spigot's been opened a little bit in the sense of like the water's coming out a lot faster now, and you're seeing like, Skim, DSG, and Delta, like that. You need that sponsorship money. You need that sponsorship money. So then when they go into the CBAs next year and talk about like, hey, we have more moms in the league, so can we get like maternity leave or, you know, get paid for that? Or, hey, can we have facilities where moms can take care of their business with if they like the kids come to the games? And you would see that more, I feel like, with the U.S. women's national team and even like their whole journey with all the shit they had to deal with. But you would see more moms in the U.S. women's national team than you would see in the W. But now you're seeing more, like Katie Lou Samuelson's coming back this season. And I love Katie Lou. And she's in Indiana too. Like, she's a great athlete. She's there too. And so her daughter's there and going to be, and so you didn't have as many women being moms in the W as, let's say, you have men being fathers in the NBA. But now you're seeing, because it's like the women have to deliver the baby. They're carrying the babies. But you got like Steph Curry or whatever, like, look at my cute daughter that I have during the press conference. Like, that's great. Like, you can still be in top shape, male athlete, but hey, female athlete, you carry the baby, you deliver the baby, you're feeding the baby. And then, hey, can you go, like the fact that Cheryl Swoops came back, 6 weeks after delivering a child and like jumps back into the W. Banana.
Can we point out Skylar Diggins-Smith and her skims after having 2 kids? Did we notice that? Skylar Diggins?
I mean, Skylar Diggins has always been in phenomenal shape. I mean, but like, girl doesn't mess around. Girl does not mess
around.
Back at it, and I'm excited for Seattle. Yeah. Like when we talk about
Donnie's
games,
looking it up right now. Donnie's looking it up.
I have this. I already looked at it today, but I'm going to just check again for fact finding and just to
make sure I have everything straight.
I mean, these photographs are amazing. I mean, the photographer is Hugh Wilson, and it's just
Kim Kardashian again. Lover or hater, she's a master marketer. Like, she knows. Oh my God. She knows what's up.
She's a phenomenal businesswoman. I mean, people like,
and it's not just and Skin is also with the NBA. But there's photos of Shea Gilgeous-Alexander and some others. So
NFL, I think there was Bosa.
I was going to say, I thought I saw an NFL player, but I didn't know if there was like a actual hop with the NFL or not. But I definitely saw him. So it kind of makes you think about what if people had been doing this before and putting this money into it and letting us know who these people are. It's like the chicken and the egg, right? Like, there is like State Farm commercials. There is a female basketball player featured, and because I am not the fan that you guys are, I don't know who she is. Like, I saw her in a State Farm commercial.
It's Camilla Cardozo.
No, it wasn't her. It was somebody else. I brought
Caitlin Clark.
Well, you have Caitlin Clark, but you have Camilla Cardozo. It's the where she's talking to her family in Brazil, or she's listening to her mom leave her voicemail.
No, it's the woman who is it's the guy's house that gets broken into, and she's talking about steals. Oh, he's mentioned something. There's been things that have been stolen, and this basketball player shows up because of the steals, and then State Farm shows up, and I don't know who that player is, but it makes me want to go find out who is that. I don't know who that is. But, State Farm's featuring her.
I can tell you right now, it's Hannah Hidalgo from Notre Dame. Hannah Hidalgo.
Okay.
Because she led the nation in steals.
Yeah.
Right, but to me, I don't know who that person is.
Yeah.
Right, she's a college
athlete. I don't know who she is, but State Farm is featuring her. So guess what that makes? As a sports fan, I'm like, I don't know who that is. Maybe I should go find out who that is, right?
Yeah.
Like,
well, it's like the Juju. The Juju Watkins bun with
that's my favorite commercial with her and Joel Embiid. It's the Juju. It's so great. And that's another thing. Watching these male athletes, and granted, that's a commercial, but we have seen male athletes, NBA, NFL athletes showing up at these games and supporting, and they've been doing that for a while. But now it's being noticed more, and I think it's just another great way that the NBA can partner with them, and I feel like the players really want to support the WNBA.
Well, at the end of the day, the athletes always respect the athlete. And so whether it's like a men's team or a women's team, and I think you listen to any of these W players or any female athlete, really, when it's the comparison, like the men's league versus the women's league, like the men's soccer versus women's soccer, men's basketball, women's basketball, like, we're different sexes. The game's going to be different. But that doesn't mean the athleticism and the skill is anything less astonishing than, like, yes, women aren't going to be able to dunk from the foul line. Like, that's just not how we're built. Maybe one day But that's not why, like, there's a reason that you'll hear people talk about, like, I really love the women's game because of the finesse of it, because of the style of it, because of the fundamentals of it. Like, you see, like, Dawn and I were joking the other day, like, I went to my nephew's 5-year-old dribble league. He's in this like little dribble league. And I was like, oh, I'm watching the NBA right now. Cause it's just like the guys picking up the ball and running with it. Because
one on one.
You're just like, I'm just going to carry this ball.
I don't need
to
carry
in 10 seconds. And I'm going to take my European steps and take maybe 6 steps to the basket after I pick it up.
Sliding pivot. They're like the sliding pivot in the NBA.
Lots of pivots.
The women's, for years now, you'll hear like, oh, the fundamentals, and anybody who like maybe has that nostalgia for the 90s basketball with where the league was then compared to where it is now. Like now it's got things that are still super impressive, but those who are older, like, I miss that. They gravitate towards the women's league because like, oh yeah, there's the finesse and there's defense and there's strategy and there's like backdoor cuts and like screens, and then you're not have that alley oop, but you could have a really awesome, like, drive to the basket, crazy move. It might not dunk it, but it's still going to be an amazing thing to look at. And I think
I'm tired of dunks. I mean, I'm like, is a dunk spectacular when you're 6'5" or 8 or whatever?
No,
I mean,
7'8". I mean, what the heck?
The kid from Purdue that just got drafted.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
For the NBA.
Yeah, I know.
Well, and I think another thing that happened last year that really kind of meshed the men's and women's game and kind of made people see the women a little bit in a different light was Sabrina Ionescu and Steph Curry doing that 3-point. Like for Sabrina to go out and do that and to shoot from the NBA line. I don't know if y'all have stepped on a court. And when I played,
half court.
And I know it's been a minute for me too. And when I played, the 3-point line was basically at the top of the key. Yeah. Well, now in the college ranks, it's like a foot or so back. And then the NBA is like 3 feet beyond that, which I was on a court a few months ago, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's no way I could get it to the rim.
I'm like, can I make a foul shot now? That brim seems so far away from what I was. 22 years old.
The fact that Sabrina like agreed to shoot from that far out, like that's a huge difference. And she almost won. That's insane.
Yeah. Well, and knowing the risks, if she didn't do it,
yes,
she's gonna have haters anyway, right?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, that was a big moment. I mean, it wasn't quite, Billie Jean hitting Bobby Riggs, but it was, one of those battle of the sexes. It was a battle of the sexes.
But I think when we talk like where is now like the Caitlin Clark effect that's happening right now, you think back when Sabrina, Sabrina was kind of the Caitlin of her college career and coming in, and Elena Delle Donne was somewhat a little bit of her Caitlin Clark, and like when she was coming in. But again, social media wasn't as like when Elena was coming out of college, coming out of Delaware, like there was that story there of like mid-tier. Tier 1 college, the story of was going to UConn and left, and then her whole family story. There was so much behind it, and I think like so every generation's kind of had this. Who's the like you think like Maya Moore was an amazing collegiate athlete, and she had like she was the Caitlin Clark of her collegiate graduation, but now with social media, it's just like there's just so much more exposure for these athletes to. And there's so much more brand awareness. I was listening to Neil Ivey do an interview on Julie Foudy's podcast, and she's talking. She's like, it's hard to be a college coach now with the NIL. Like, where the transfer coaches portal. Are getting ready. And it's like you're just like you gotta just before like I wanted to be a collegiate coach when I was younger. Like that was my dream. I was like a 10-year-old with a game board, like drawing up plays. And then after I finished college, I was like, I don't want this lifestyle. I was like, okay, so here's like the back door and we need to run a triangle and like, do the thing. But at the end of the day, after being exposed to it in college, I was like, I love the game. I love what the game can give, life lessons of it. I love empowering young women and helping them on that journey. Hated the recruiting. I was like being on the road, going to some 15, 14, 15, 16-year-old kid's house, be like, you're amazing. It's like, I grew up like a Pat Summitt fan. So I'm like, Pat Summitt just shows up and you're like, this is what you're going to do. And we're going to make you a better human. Right. And this is why you should come play for me. You're like, yes, ma'am, whatever you need. Instead of like, basically you would have like, you're going to come to my house, kiss my butt. And then I'm going to come onto your court and then you're going to kick my kick my butt. And that's how the coaches, and then that's why freshmen cry all the time, because they're like, but wait, you came to my house and said I was amazing and I was going to be a transformation of this program. And then it's like to break you down, build you up. That's the way it was when Tracy and I were younger. It was like, I'm going to break you down.
When we were young.
Yes. I'm sure. And I kind of think Gino still does. I'm pretty sure Gino still runs that way. Sure. It's kind of like, but all, most of his players are still like tried and true. And again, I can have, as an adult, I can have respect for Gino and what he has built. And I've, the same way that the rivalry that he and Pat created. And so you look at the college game, it's like, do we have that rival? Like they're trying to rebuild it. I'm like, that rivalry's gone. It's not going to, the UConn Tennessee is not gonna come back. But, the South Carolina versus UConn, or the South Carolina versus, whomever, or LSU, or, who are the new top 16 teams, because it used to only be 4, and now it's like there's really like 16 or 20 teams. And when you go to a Final Four women's games, like it's going to be pretty good. You're not going to really have those blowouts. And I remember like the Final Four with Enrique, who's over in Dallas.
Oh my gosh!
Like those Final Four games, Notre Dame, like. So the fact that like I'm super stoked to see Skylar and Jewel play.
Mm-hmm.
Like the fact that they were drafted in the same year, because Jewel is like the first WNBA player to leave college early. She left her junior year. And and so the fact that they finally get to be teammates again, and you have NECA there, like I'm curious to see how this rebuild year is going to be for Seattle. And with Pokey, I think Pokey Chapman is the president, and then you have they have the same coach whose name is
Noah Quinn.
Yeah,
Quinn.
But that minute,
I mean, I'm not. She just is a kind of a yawn coach to me. Like, just not overly exciting. So we'll see how long she lasts. I'm surprised she lasted as long as she has, to be honest.
But they have the new facility. So, like, when you look at investment every WNBA team's a little bit different in what their facilities are still. So you look at like Seattle just got this. I think they just built this $20 million facility, and it's their new training facility. So they'll have more, professional standards versus like, hey, we're back to the community center. Can we take your, can we borrow your locker room? So bad. And it's still the case. Like the Liberty used to do that when the Liberty were in limbo between like not having an owner, between like Dolan like trying to sell them and not playing at Madison's Garden. They played at the Westchester Community Center for like 3 summers.
I saw those games. I'm like, what is this? This is seriously a recreational center. Like I could be lifting weights and swimming in the room next to it.
And fast forward now that they're selling out the Barclays Center, which is amazing. And the vibe there is really, really fun. And I'm like, I live in New York City, so part of me is like, oh man, I gotta get it to Barclay. I wish it was still at MSG, but the same way you're probably like, I wish the Mystics were still at Capital One, so I don't have to haul my butt over to Southeast, because at least there's a metro there. And not that I'm gonna take the metro in DC, but if I wanted to, I could. But it's still, you still have that like disparity across the W, where there is inconsistent like facilities for each of the teams. They're different. The Liberty got in trouble for charter flights last year because the ownership had money and they wanted to be able to just do it for their players, but then that would give them an advantage against other teams. And so the league was like, absolutely not. And then, so, and I don't even know. I'm assuming that the Mystics practice in the same arena they play. Like, I don't know.
They practice in the same facility, but I mean, you've seen the facility. It's nothing. It's nothing great, So
when it comes to like recruiting players and trying to get that top talent, these W players, these W players, Chicago's got more investment because you got Dwayne Wade and Gabrielle Union as part of the ownership league. You got, I think Sue Bird just started to be part of the ownership team out in Seattle. You have, so you have people like putting the investments in. And so I'm curious to see how the other teams can level up. I think Dallas, they just announced, because they were playing some Texas university in the middle of nowhere and down in the mayor of Dallas. mayor of Dallas is like, you can come play at the convention center. And even for me, I'm like, the convention center? Like, is that a win? Like, I don't, everyone seems to be happy about it. I don't know the Dallas market. So if that's a win, it's not an American Airlines Arena, I'll tell you that. So,
no.
Okay. Like, they're sold out, which is great. And, I think it's gaining momentum there. And they have they're an awesome team. And so I'm like, I don't know where this Dallas Convention Center is, but the people, the newspapers of Dallas seem really stoked about it. And like, I don't know where they play in Atlanta. Do they play in the NBA?
No. They play in a
Are they playing at like Georgia Tech?
Small arena.
Are they playing?
No, it's not Georgia. It's not even Georgia Tech. It's smaller.
Like Georgia State. It's like Georgia State University or something like that. I've been to Atlanta, so like I know there's different things for them to play, but again, it's kind of like the NWSL is. It's if you build it, they will come. It's like some arenas can hold 5,000, some hold 10,000, some hold 15, some have the opportunity like to go sell out Capital One if Indiana's coming in. Vegas is doing the same thing. They sold out their 10,000. Their arena's 10 or 11,000 people, but they're moving all like the Indiana games to T-Mobile, which is 25,000. Ideally, they would just be at T-Mobile.
Yeah, I did look up the Dream, and they played the Gateway Center. And while it's 5,000 seats for concerts and such, it's only 3,500 for Dream basketball games.
That's what I thought. I was like, Atlanta plays in a really small. I mean, it looks on TV when they're playing. It's like, oh wow, there's a lot of people there. But then you're like, wait, it holds 3,000.
So you're like, Iowa Hawkeyes sold out, and it was 60,000 people, and you're just like, wait, what? Yeah. Like. And so I think that's also a reality for some of these college athletes who are like, we get to like play in front of these big like stores or Iowa or UCLA, like they're playing in big arenas for these college campuses, and then you're like, hey, here's your 3,500 seat, high school gym
that barely has enough people in it. Yeah.
And
I know.
But they were talking about that. They were talking about how, I forget which team. Well, I guess was it Iowa's coach be like, hey, 5 years ago we had 700 people, and then we went to 5,000 people, and now we're selling out arenas. And it is about getting that marquee player. It is about the branding. The one thing about the W and just female athletes in general is they are entrenched in the community. They are doing all the community outreach. They're bringing all the little league kids in. They're talking, doing all the ribbon cuttings. They're going to all the hospitals. Their community engagement, 1,000%. They are out there. And I think the other thing about the W is that they're approachable. I don't know how much longer that's going to last as the W League grows. You have these after NBA games, these players aren't staying around to like sign shit. They're like, peace out. Here's my jersey or here's my headband. I'm out. And whereas the W,
most of them, female, a few of them do, the Steph Currys of the world, they actually will do that, but not. No,
No, it's not practice. Whereas the women's league, whether it's soccer, hockey, basketball, softball, whatever professional women's league and college, they stay. They want to engage. They're like, hey, thank you so much for coming. Like, we're so happy you're here, and I can give you a hug.
They know, like, this is their fan base, and like they've got to cultivate it, And the thing is, people don't understand the NBA when it first started was nowhere near the revenue producing beast that it is now. It took a while for the NBA to really grow
25 years.
And so the WNBA is now finally starting to get some of these rivalries because we saw it in college. We saw the whole national championship, not this past year, but the year before, with Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark, I think was one of the catalysts to see. Because Caitlin Clark talked trash. She talks trash. Yeah. She does.
Oh, yeah, the whole,
and she talked trash. She talked trash in the Louisville game. Yeah. And so then Angel Reese is the queen of trash talk. Yeah. And so she gave it right back to her. And people saw that. And that's why this past year when LSU played Iowa.
Yeah.
Well, how dare you, first of all. But it's like, come on. They both talk trash. Yes. But like, that's why when LSU played Iowa, like, it was like, marquee matchup. Like people, even like my family members who had zero clue about basketball, they were like, oh, we got to see how Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark, it's like the Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, we got to see the rivalry.
Well, that was the 80s. The 80s was like the precipice of the bad boy, like you think about like the Detroit Pistons, bad boys, like there's like, we're gonna come in here and punch you. If you watch games in the 80s, the men's game,
horrible.
they were beating the shit out of each other. There was no like boundaries whatsoever. There was like, I'm going to break your bones. You try to go up for a layup or a dunk, you are gonna get cut off at the knees, and I might throw you into the bleachers. But hey, entertainment, we're still gonna have a fun time, but who's the best? And Larry Bird was like, don't mess with Larry Bird. Like, Larry Bird was a scrappy player. But so I think I think it's also seeing women athletes, especially in you're more upfront of it with women's basketball than you are, let's say, watching the NWSL or the U.S. Women's National Team, because it's you're so far away. You might see it on a PK or like they'll zoom in on you, but when you're watching a women's basketball game or you're at the arena, you can hear everything that they're saying. And it is not PG. It is not PG. It is like in your face, and I'm going to come at you and I'm going to talk trash to you, and you want to come through this lane, like try. But we're women, and I think the perception of like women can't be like aggressive. No, that's changing. Like that's still there. Yeah. Hence, like, but it's also to say, when you look at the WNBA draft, or you talk to Angel Reese, or you talk to Caitlin Clark, or any of the, they're like, it's like inside the lines is one thing, outside the lines is another. Inside the lines is like, we're here to play. Like I'm here to win. I'm here to win a game. Like, and then the game's over. You're like, drink, cool. Like, meet you down around the like, let's go get a drink. They might not like be best friends, but it's like, hey, we're all like, look at this league, look what we're doing, look what like they know that what they're trying to accomplish, and so I'm sure they're going to play into the narrative, but then they might be like texting and DMing, be like, oh my god, wasn't that ridiculous? Like, well,
that's what my thought was with everyone talking about Diana Taurasi when Caitlin Clark and Diana Taurasi come together, and I can tell you what's going to happen. They're going to find each other before the game. They're going to do the little hug. They're going to say, hey, what's up? And then they're going to go play. And Caitlin Clark's going to say all the right things, like she always says. She's going to say how Diana Taurasi is a great competitor. She can't wait to go up against her. She's one of the GOATs. It's all competition. Now everyone's still going to watch.
Sure. It's going to get nasty, Donnie.
It's
going to get nasty.
Diana's already given her the heads up. I am going to clothesline you. Basically, you try. You try to get back. She said it when she's on that show. She's going to like clothesline you. If you try to break away from me, I'm going to foul you. She's already like the rest of her.
Mercury like, Twitter feed has been on fire, by the way. Yeah. So it's already like it's building. Yeah. It's building.
Yeah. But you wouldn't do that with Sue. And that's not Sue's personality. Sue would never be the one to be the
of course aggressor. Not. Sue.
Diana's always been the
Taurasi, I mean, I think Taurasi is kind of like this bitter old veteran that she knows her time is coming to an end. And as much as she loves that Caitlin's bringing all this visibility, she's a little jealous. She's a little jealous that she's not the one that really brought people out to, 13,000 people for a preseason game. Nobody's showing up to see Diana Taurasi at a preseason game. Sorry. And so Diana Taurasi takes that personal, and that's what I'm saying. It's going to get nasty that game. And I wouldn't be surprised, when Caitlin Clark steps on the court, like Caitlin Clark turns into a different person. Like she's not going to be overly nice. Yeah. And she's going to compete her ass off. And if Diana gives her cheap shots, like watch out.
Yeah. Well, I think
so that
also,
game is on June 30th, by the way. June 30th.
I already have it marked on my calendar. Yeah.
I know that, and I think about it, like, Diana's, they're all competitors. They all want to win championships. They all want that W title. Yep. And I can imagine with Diana, it's kind of like they had like peaks and valleys. They had like seasons where they're like, we're getting to the championship. It's Phoenix versus Seattle. It's Phoenix versus Minnesota. Yeah. It's Phoenix, those were and it's been, unfortunately, 4 or 5, maybe even longer seasons where it's like Phoenix they've been on the lower tier. They haven't been able to
barely made the playoffs.
Sandy, I think her last season there, like they just got into the playoffs and she's like, peace out, I'm going to New York. And they haven't really, and then, so many other things have occurred since then. Brittany, Russia, a couple different coaches, new ownership, like they just haven't found their rhythm, and it's been a constant rebuild. And I imagine for Diana, she's loyal. She could have left. She didn't have to stay in Phoenix. She could have gone someplace else, made more money, had a chance to win another championship someplace else. Mm-hmm. She could have done with what Brianna did. But she and her wife are there. They have family. They have a home.
Yeah.
She's closer to her family in California. Like, who knows the decision why she decided to stay.
Sure.
But yeah, it's going to be fun because she's like the veteran of the league. Like, I'm trying to think of who's next. I can't think of it right. I can't there's like Diana, and then I'm like, I think we have some 12, 13-year veterans in the league. I'm sure we do. Like, Vandersloot's 13 years, which like blew my mind.
Yeah, but
like what? Wait,
but Diana's the old grouchy vet. Like, she's just grouchy.
She's a rookie. That's the funny thing. She's been the grumpy, like, no matter what it is.
Oh my gosh.
But you're like, you can talk all that shit because you can back it up. Because
she did that for a long time.
You just watch her highlights from preseason. She's like, boop, dime. Like, drops 3 buckets. Like, she's still an amazing athlete, but she's also like, I'm not going to chase you. I'm just going to foul you. I'm not going to chase you.
Exactly. Which I can't stand.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Like, I got 6 fouls. I got 6 fouls to give. What do you want from me?
Oh man.
I'll make it up. I'll go drop 20 points. It's fine. Whatever. But who's that other one on Phoenix who's like the scrappy defender? Oh my God, I can't think of her name, but she always gets it's like Cunningham. Is it Cunningham?
Oh, Sophie Cunningham is my jam. Yeah. Like, I love that girl.
But she is a beat. She's another like defender. Like, I will cut you. I will cut you on the court.
That girl, I wouldn't want to be in a dark alley with. Like, she's crazy.
She's gonna be the one to guard Caitlin. She's gonna be the one to guard Caitlin. I don't think it's gonna be Natasha. It could be her or Natasha. Like, from a defender standpoint,
Natasha might guard her. Natasha is gonna take that. Again, it's gonna get nasty whether it's Taurasi, Sophie Cunningham, or Natasha Cloud, because all of them have a little edge to all of them, and they do not want to see Caitlin succeed against them.
No way.
Tune in, ladies and gentlemen. Tune in.
Oh, for sure. I feel like we should all be watching that game together.
Yeah.
This has been an amazing hour. I know we could probably talk for another couple hours about all of this, but this has been an amazing session. I have just sat back and listened to you talk because you two, I mean, it's been amazing listening to this, listening to these stories. Everyone's so excited about the season, and we're going to have many more podcasts talking about the WNBA. And I think later this week, some of us are going to be talking about the NFL because they're coming out with a schedule on Wednesday. So we'll be talking about a little bit more NFL, but it'll still be WNBA.
Our commanders do.
I don't know if I want to talk about the commanders.
I'm still thinking that, like, talking about rebuilding. I even though we have new ownership, I'm still like I'm still looking at the next couple of years as rebuilds. I'm not expecting anything heroic for us to happen.
It has to be. We have a new rookie quarterback, and I mean,
it's quarterback number 527. Like, how many quarterbacks can Washington have in the last 30 years? I think we go with it's just like
I was gonna say
I can't invest 4 hours on a Sunday.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. But we will have a lot more WNBA to talk about, and we also have obviously we don't have the teams, we don't have the lineups yet for the Olympics, right? For the women's.
No, that hasn't been finalized. The men's or the women's team isn't final yet.
Okay. So we'll be following that, and obviously all the games that are coming tomorrow, and all the ones we have on our calendars, and we will just keep talking about it and having a great time together and sharing all this with everybody. And we will look forward to talking to everyone later. Alex and Tracy, you guys were amazing today. So love talking to you. And
well, Donnie, thank you again for being the hostess with the mostest. And everybody get 2 or 3 bottles of wine tomorrow night for all these WNBA games, because you're going to have a blast watching all this.
Yeah. It's going to be amazing.
Wine, bourbon, spritzer, whatever you're
Exactly.
We're going to say, we don't want to limit you. You have range.
Right. Right.
So,
exactly.
Exactly. No, this has been great, Don. Thanks so much for having us. This has been a lot of fun.
All right. It's been awesome. All right, you guys. Have a good night. We'll talk to you later. Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.